Thought I would take this opportunity to introduce Ambassador Lee Jong-hun to the audience. As all of you know, he's the South Korean government's ambassador for human rights. He's also a faculty member at Yonsei University, where he's currently the director of the Center for Modern Korean Studies and also the director of the Center for American Studies. He serves in an advisory capacity as a senior member of South Korea's National Unification Advisory Council and the Ministry of Unification, where he chairs the Advisory
또 이분은
Humanitarian Affairs. His Excellency Ambassador Lee also acts as co-chair of HRNK, an NGO dealing mainly with North Korean human rights. He is also a constant presence in the media in South Korea. He hosted for 5 years a weekly TV program on current affairs. And outside Korea, he has made numerous appearances on CNN, BBC, NHK, ABC, Channel News Asia, and other media organizations. A little known fact about Ambassador Lee, possibly, is that he has great interest in professional sports, having served for 4 years as chairman of the Korea Professional Tennis Federation, and we hope we'll be able to share some tennis stories with you someday as well. So, Ambassador Lee Jong-hun, the floor is yours.
Well, I really wasn't expecting an introduction. I just wanted to give a very brief introduction of the video. As you know, I founded last year, actually, last January, the Yonsei University Center for Human Liberty. We're very young, and with the limited activities that we do, you know, I believe that the sort of reaching out with the short video program is very, very important. So this is one of the things that I try to concentrate on, and I've made one of them, which I'll be showing just before the luncheon keynote speakers. It's a short program, just basically raising the question of why we are here, why we're doing this. And it's a tribute to all of us who's dedicated to this North Korean human rights. So without further ado, I guess it's on the screens, not in the middle, but it's on 3 screens, so I'll just end my introduction at that. Thank you.
서달구지를 여자들이 4명이서 일을 하거든요. 앞에서 2명, 뒤에서 끌고, 뒤에서 2명. 흙 있잖아요. 한 톤씩 되게 이렇게 싣고서. 근데 그것도 걸어가면 또 안 돼요. 뛰어야 돼요. 제가 일단 언성 단련대에 나가게 되면 여자들만 이제 피 검사를 해요. 임신했나, 뭐 성병 왔나 이런 걸로. 그렇게 검사하고 이제 임신한 사람들은 이제 다 유산시키는데 이제 그 일하러 가갖고 이제 여자들 우선 임신한 여자들 그런 데를 일하러 많이 보내거든요. 이제 일하러 가갖고 그 힘든 이 산길 있잖아요. 짐 지고 올라갔다 내려갔다 올라갔다 막 이렇게 일을 시키거든요. 그럼 제대로 막 유산되잖아요. 진짜 배가 너무 고파갖고 막 남의 집들 가다가 이제 개 먹거리 준다던가 뭐 소먹거리 주는데 콩알이라도 있으면 그거라도 막 주워 먹고 심지어 어떤 사람들은 개 똥을 사잖아요. 소똥이라면 사면 그 콩알이 강냉알이라 막 나오잖아요. 그거 막 주워 먹고 사람들도 있다고 하더라고요.
When I was 9 years old, I saw my friend's mother publicly executed. Her crime, watching a Hollywood movie. Today, I escaped North Korea. I saw my mother raped. The rapist was a Chinese broker. He targeted me. I was 13 years old. My mother allowed herself to be raped. In order to protect me, we wanted to live as humans.
Thank you, Ambassador Lee Jong-hun. It is an extraordinary privilege to introduce our first luncheon keynote speaker. Carl Gershman has been president of the National Endowment for Democracy for 31 years. In that capacity, he has presided over the development of the endowment's grants program in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, in the former Soviet Union, and Latin America. Under his leadership, the National Endowment for Democracy created the Quarterly Journal of Democracy in 1990 and launched the International Forum for Democratic Studies in 1994. Carl Gershman is currently encouraging other democracies to establish their own foundations devoted to the promotion of democratic institutions in the world. Prior to assuming the position with the National Endowment for Democracy, Mr. Gershman was senior counselor to the U.S. representative to the UN beginning in January 1981. Mr. Carl Gershman is also one of our very active and dedicated board members at HRNK, the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea. He continues to inspire our board and members and staff members and me personally through his dedication, enthusiasm, and the attention he continues to pay to North Korean human rights issues. Carl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for going forward with this meeting despite the weather without any hesitation, because we emailed last night and I knew that our office was closed, the whole city was going to be closed, but nothing stops Greg, and I think that's the spirit that we're going to need to win this struggle, and we have that spirit. It's more than just Greg, but I think he exemplifies it. I want to take part of my time today to thank the three commissioners for their historic report, which brought the issue of human rights in North Korea to the attention of the entire world. Michael Kirby led the commission with judiciousness and wisdom, and his immense dedication is evident in the way he is now trying to mobilize support for the commission's recommendations, which constitute a comprehensive agenda for action by the international community in the period ahead. Marzuki Darusman, in his capacity as the UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in North Korea, played an essential role leading to the creation of the Commission and brought extremely valuable expertise to the inquiry on the workings of the North Korean system. Of course, he remains the Special Rapporteur, and his role will be enormously important in implementing the recommendations. And finally, Sonia Biserko is a very old friend of mine, who was a founding member in 1991 of the Center for Anti-War Action in Belgrade, the first and the most important peace initiative in Serbia that opposed Milosevic's nationalist agenda. She has been a frequent target of threats and even physical attacks, but she's never backed down. And when she testified in 2013 to the International Court of Justice in support of Croatia's charge of genocide against Serbia. She's a woman of courage and valor and a tremendous asset for the cause of human rights in North Korea. It's something of an understatement to say that the Commission's recommendations, which open with a call upon the DPRK to, quote, undertake profound political and institutional reforms without delay, that the recommendations are ambitious. It's good to set the bar high, but we all know how difficult any transition in North Korea will be. I just finished reviewing Blaine Hardin's new book, The Great Leader and the Fighter Pilot, that uses portraits of two figures, Kim Il-sung and No Kum-suk, the young lieutenant who flew his MiG to freedom shortly after the end of the Korean War. He uses these stories to explain how the monstrous political system of North Korea, with all the grotesque features described in the Commission's report, came into being. Nothing has really changed in the system that Kim built in the aftermath of the devastation he brought on his country. And it's possible to conclude that nothing can change. But I don't think that's true for three reasons. The stunning success of South Korea is an existential rebuke to the North, and it shows that its system has no future. The isolation of the society and the control system in the North are beginning to break down. And the world, informed by the Commission's report, satellite photographs of the camps, and many other reports, books, and films, the world is now more aware than ever before of the terrible abuses taking place, leading to new pressures for change that will only grow in the future. The Commission's report has many recommendations, and I want to take a few minutes, the few minutes I have left, to focus on three of them. The first is the recommendation to form a contact group of donors in other countries with friendly ties to North Korea who would raise human rights concerns in their ongoing bilateral relations. Scandinavian and other Western countries are obvious candidates for such a group, and they're doing it already. I think the main idea here, and we'll hear further maybe from commissioners on this, is to involve countries from the global South, Africa, South and Southeast Asia, and Latin America, to show that human rights is not just a concern of the advanced democracies of the West. One place to begin would be to encourage global democracy networks like the non-governmental World Movement for Democracy and the Intergovernmental Community of Democracies to raise the issue of North Korea human rights with their members and participants. Countries like Indonesia and Mongolia are natural candidates for such a group, but there are many other countries that could be involved, and the growing interest of the UN on the issue will help. The contact group might start by focusing on less politically sensitive issues like better access to educational opportunities for young North Koreans, access to immunization and better health care, and adequate nutrition for pregnant women and for children. The second recommendation that I want to focus on is that states in the region should initiate something like a Helsinki process. This is the last recommendation. The idea of developing a collective security system for Northeast Asia that, like Helsinki, would include broad provisions for cooperation in humanitarian and other fields, and also freer movement of people and information, has been around for some time. Had the six-party talks succeeded, such a process might have evolved out of one of its working groups. South Korea has now proposed the Northeast Asia Peace and Cooperation Initiative, or NAPSI, which is a framework for multilateral security cooperation. It's still in its very early stages, and a realistic next step might be trilateral consultations among South Korea, Japan, and the U.S., involving both governments and government officials and policy specialists to consider the feasibility of a collective security system that would have a basket 3 human rights dimension. It's useful, I think, to remember that the initial agenda for the Helsinki process began with discussions within NATO over 3 years. Such a process might also offer a way to make progress on other recommendations of the Commission, such as getting China to respect the principle of non-refoulement and stop forcibly repatriating North Korean refugees, and also fostering both inter-Korean dialogue and people-to-people dialogue between North Korea and other countries. Finally, the third recommendation that I want to note is the recommendation to establish a structure to ensure that those most responsible for crimes against humanity are held accountable for their actions. Transitional justice is a central issue in every transition. It consists of measures both judicial and non-judicial, including criminal prosecutions and truth commissions, to redress the legacy of massive human rights abuses, to punish those most guilty, to give a truthful and comprehensive accounting of the abuses, and to recognize the rights of the victims. The hope is that by striving for accountability and truth, a society can find a way to rebuild civic trust and the rule of law. Inevitably, there will be punishment for crimes committed, but retribution is not enough. There must also be reconciliation. The abuses in North Korea have been so massive that it's hard to imagine what a process of transitional justice would look like. That, of course, is for the future. For now, there are two immediate tasks. First, because the North Korean regime is aware of the growing international concern about the crimes it has committed and may seek to destroy the evidence, it's necessary to collect as much evidence and document as many crimes as possible. And second, I think it's important for those involved in the cause of human rights in North Korea to begin studying the issue of transitional justice and to examine how it has been dealt with both in post-communist countries and in other countries that have experienced transitions over the past 3 decades. And there are countries like Burma and Sri Lanka that are grappling with that issue today. And I can't think of two better people to provide guidance on how to undertake such an examination than Marzuki Darusman and Sonia Biserko, each of whom has played a pivotal role in dealing with issues of transitional justice in their own respective countries. Such an examination will help people concerned about a better future for North Korea to start thinking through a very complex issue that will have to be addressed in the future if there is an opening. And it would also be useful, in my view, to find a way to communicate a nuanced and informed understanding of transitional justice to elites in North Korea, among whom there must be people who realize that the current system is doomed, but who can't imagine how they could survive a process of transition. One way or another, such a transition is coming. The Commission has made that more likely by putting the well-being of the people of North Korea on the agenda of the international community, something that has never happened before. With its recommendations, it's also provided us with a roadmap for moving forward and for helping the people of North Korea achieve freedom. That's something that we now need to do, as we in the United States once said of racial segregation, with all deliberate speed. Thank you.
Our next keynote speaker has been for a long time a prominent senior political figure of the ruling Saenuri party in South Korea. Former Governor Kim Moon-soo has most recently served as chairman of the Political Reform Committee of the Saenuri party. From 2006 to 2014, he served as the governor of Gyeonggi province. Before becoming governor, he served as a member of the National Assembly, 3-term lawmaker representing Bucheon in Gyeonggi province. A former labor and democracy activist, Governor Kim is regarded as one of the few leaders in Korea who stressed the importance of both inter-Korean exchanges and the North Korean human rights issue. In 2012, Governor Kim ran in the ruling party's presidential primary to challenge then-party leader and now current president, Park Geun-hye, ultimately placing second in that race. As we were having dinner last night, the vice co-chair of our organization, Suzanne Schulte, who is also the president of the North Korea Freedom Coalition, reminded us that former Governor Kim Moon-soo has been a staunch supporter of North Korean human rights groups in South Korea and here in the United States, and we always think of him as a very good and dear friend of our organizations. Please join me in welcoming former Governor Kim Moon-soo.
It is a great honor to speak to you today, especially in front of such a special audience as we have here. Our love and compassion for the North Korean people has brought us together today. And on behalf of the politicians of the Republic of Korea, I would like to offer my deepest respect and gratitude for your noble efforts to improve North Korean human rights. Please excuse my English, and I will speak in Korean from now. I'm sorry, please.
Korean Human Rights Ambassador Jung-hoon Lee and former UNCOI Chairman Michael Kirby, who is the main player of the landmark COI report, UN Special Rapporteur on North Korea's human rights, Marzuki Darusman, Sonia Biserko, Dr. Victor Cha, North Korean Human Rights Special Envoy Robert King, Dr. Robert Cohen, President Carl Gershman of NED, Executive Director Greg Scalitu of HRNK, and North Korean human rights activists and North Korean defectors who are here with us, and US and Korean government officers and those from the press. I would like to thank you for your hard work. I also like to thank the organizers for putting this meaningful event together, CSIS, HRNK, George W. Bush Institute, and also my thanks goes to Human Liberty Center at Yonsei University from Korea. Improving North Korea's human rights is critical in addressing the North nuclear problem, bringing peace in Northeast Asia, and achieving reunification on the Korean Peninsula. Improving North Korea's human rights should be a priority pursuit in inter-Korean relations. In this regard, over the years, the international community, including NGOs, has made efforts to improve North Korean human rights record, and for this, I am deeply grateful. These days, every Tuesday, I attend rallies taking place in front of Korea's National Assembly to request the establishment of a North Korean Human Rights Act. I also met with lawmakers from the ruling and opposition parties, appealing to them that turning a blind eye to North Korean human rights abuses would be a sin to heaven. In 2004, the U.S. Congress passed its North Korean Human Rights Act, and I was so ashamed of it because what we needed to do was done by the U.S. Congress first. At the time, there was a rush of North Korean defectors who exposed in great detail horrendous human rights conditions and the situations of POWs and abductees in North Korea. However, the then Romuan government, in fear of annoying the North Korean regime, abstained or did not participate in UN votes on North Korean human rights. Thus, I submitted a North Korean human rights bill to the National Assembly on August 11, 2005. For the establishment of the North Korean Human Rights Act, I visited the U.S. Congress and human rights groups to find out the status of North Korean human rights and the background behind the establishment of the U.S. North Korean Human Rights Act. I also visited places where North Korean defectors are known to have gone. I also called for the investigation into the abduction of a Korean pastor and the situation of North Korean defectors in China by holding a press conference. Chinese security agents disrupted the proceedings and confronted us for 11 hours. I also called for the prohibition of forced repatriation of North Korean defectors and also the return of South Korean POWs by proposing 4 resolutions to the National Assembly. I also put together an exhibition about North Korea's Holocaust. When I planned to resign as a lawmaker to run for the office of Gyeonggi provincial governor, North Korean human rights activists, including Sujan Schulte, were against it because they were concerned that my absence would be a setback in efforts to pass the North Korean Human Rights Act. I didn't think there would be a setback. However, after serving as a governor for 8 years and coming back to the national politics, the North Korean Human Rights Act that I had presented 10 years ago still was not passed. Human rights are so noble and sacred that they should not be violated even during war. The Korean people should not dismiss the human rights of North Korean people. As for myself, I cannot understand the argument that talking about North Korean human rights would undermine inter-Korean reconciliation and peace. I wonder, reconciliation for what and peace for whom? In the shortest period of time on earth, Korea was able to achieve industrialization and democracy at the same time. This was possible thanks to the interests and support from countries which upheld freedom, human rights, and democracy. When Korea was under military dictatorship in the 1970s and 80s, the very existence of human rights groups overseas was a great encouragement for democratic movement activists like me. Based on my past experiences, in an authoritarian state, it is quite difficult to expect human rights to be improved only by those in the state. In this regard, what is important is your role, the roles of the international community in Korea, and the North Korean Human Rights Act. The UN and the international community, by way of various laws and resolutions, are working to strengthen North Korean human rights, and such movements are echoing in Korea as well. To date, 16 local governments of Korea sent their proposals to the National Assembly requesting that a North Korean Human Rights Act be established. The Korean National Assembly should promptly pass the Korean Human Rights Act. Under the military dictatorship in 1970, I was a college student and became actively involved in pro-democracy movements. I was expelled twice from college, and it took 25 years for me to finally graduate from university. When I was expelled from school, I devoted myself to labor movements. I have lived as a worker for 7 years, and due to my involvement in labor movements, I was incarcerated and tortured. I spent 2.5 years in prison. When I was in the dark prison, it was a great comfort for me to know that someone out there was thinking of me and praying for me. It shed a light of hope. Those who are with us today are the very hope going forward for desperate North Koreans. I entered the political circle in 1994 and served as a 3-term lawmaker and Gyeonggi provincial governor. At present, I serve as the chairman of the Saenuri Party's Political Reform Committee. Until last year, for 8 years, I had served as the governor of Gyeonggi province, which was divided when Korea was divided into South and North Koreas. The Imjin River and the northern part of Gyeonggi province are so close, you could see the soil of North Korea and people within the reach of a hand. Whenever I saw North Korea with the barren mountains and pitch darkness at night, I felt heavy in my heart, thinking of the sufferings that the North Korean people faced. In 2008, for the first time in South Korea, I hired North Korean defectors as government officials. And today, there are more than 40 North Korean defectors working in the Gyeonggi provincial office. In my young days, I fought for freedom, human rights, and democracy against the authoritarian state. But now I think what I have to do is to achieve democracy in North Korea and reunification. About 100,000 North Koreans are incarcerated in political prison camps, and 24 million North Koreans are suffering from starvation and hardship. In order to solve these problems, we have to achieve democracy in North Korea and unification on the Korean Peninsula. The history shows us that the regime abusing human rights would collapse without fail. I believe that if the North Korean regime insists on disregarding human rights issues, it would end up endangering itself. We have to make efforts to reform and free North Korea. Let's work together in a long journey to free and liberate North Korea. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gershman, former Governor Kim Moon-soo, thank you very much for your luncheon keynote remarks. We were honored by your presence today. Today's conference, today's meeting is about commemorating the UN COI report, but today's meeting is also about celebration. And we have had our setbacks, and we will continue to have our setbacks. But nevertheless, the board members of the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea thought that today could provide us with a good opportunity to include an awards ceremony in today's proceedings. And I would like to invite the co-chair of the board, Dr. Roberta Cohen, to join me on stage. And I would also like to ask the three commissioners, Mr. Marzuki Darusman, Justice Kirby, Ms. Bezerko, to join Roberta.
It's my pleasure, on behalf of the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea, which I co-chair with Andrew Natsios, to present its very first Human Rights Award to the United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in the DPRK. Sometimes a person or a few individuals come along at a particular time in history and revolutionize an issue and a movement. In this room today are three such people: Justice Michael Kirby, the remarkable chair of the COI, and Commissioners Sonia Bezerko and Marzuki Darusman. Their 400-page, fully documented report has had extraordinary impact worldwide. It laid out the legal and factual foundation should a case be brought in future against the Kim regime. One might call it an international bombshell. It minced no words. It found a wide array of crimes against humanity and recommended accountability for those most responsible, beginning with Kim Jong-un. And it made recommendations going beyond criminal justice, some very positive ones, and involving governments, international organizations, non-governmental groups, civil society foundations that interact with North Korea. However, the report has been and will be facing pushback from the Kim regime and its supporters, whether governments or individuals, all of whom imagined North Korea could continue to effectively hide behind its inaccessibility. But North Korea has not been able to. The spotlight of the COI report has been too bright, and the calls upon North Korea to open up its country, open up its prison camps, and join the world outside too compelling. The COI's voice has changed how the North Korean regime is perceived and treated internationally. In time, I believe its findings will resonate within North Korea and become an important historical landmark on its road to freedom. At the Kennedy Center the other evening, there was a standing ovation for an orchestra whose performance uplifted everyone. This human rights trio merits no less. On each award, it says, in honor of the extraordinary and inspiring work you have done in support of human rights and freedom for the people of North Korea. Please join me in a standing ovation for the Commission of Inquiry. Thank you.
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I want to say I wish that there were members of our Secretariat here today. I mean, I know that the United Nations is often criticised, but this was one occasion when everything that should have been done really was done. And the Secretariat were wonderful. Giuseppe Calandruccio, who had a lot of experience in COIs, was dedicated. He only had one fault, he was a smoker, but we had to put him outside for that fault. But he was very dedicated. We had more women than men in the Secretariat, and that is a sign that women can do everything men can do. And it was a marvellous team. I want to thank Carl for his remarks this afternoon, for his reminder of the importance of transitional justice. And when I was in Thailand only about 3 weeks ago, I met the government of Thailand, and they sought to explain to me why, during the UN process, they had voted for the Cuban amendment to the resolution that would have postponed any more serious action. They said, we are anxious that North Korea should not be painted into a corner where they might do risky and dangerous things. And then when that was defeated, we then voted for the motion because we thought that on its merits, the motion was made out and that the COI report should be adopted. That was a very logical position to take, and I can understand it. And they were at pains to indicate that they wanted to reach out to North Korea, and that's going to be important to get the nations that wish to do that. And I thank you for your statement. Governor Kim, can I thank you for your statement? When I was a judge in Australia, I heard that that great Democrat, Kim Dae-jung, was coming to Australia. And I knew his story, that he had twice been walking to his execution, and twice he came back and survived and became the president of a democratic country. And I take great encouragement that you in your life have learned the experience that in a democracy, everybody must find a place and a voice must be there for everybody. And this is a wonderful lesson for all. In this week's Economist, at the very back is an obituary of Richard von Weizsäcker. Richard von Weizsäcker was the president of Germany at the time of the reunification of Germany. I commend that obituary for you to read. I think we can all learn a lot from Germany, because before the Berlin Wall fell, there were the steps towards dialogue, person-to-person contacts. And at the end of the obituary is a very dramatic statement. When he heard that the wall was falling, von Weizsäcker rushed from central Germany to Berlin. And he rushed to the wall. And through the wall came jumping the police from the DDR, the German Democratic Republic. They rushed through the wall towards him. And one of them, seeing him there, stopped, saluted, and said, "Nichts ungewöhnlich, Herr Präsident." Nothing unusual going on today, President, because he wanted to emphasize that this was Germany joining together. And I think all of us must hope and pray for the reunification, a peaceful reunification of the Koreas. It doesn't necessarily require regime change. Something transitional must be found or may be found. But it's important that you should understand the United Nations Commission could not posit regime change. They are a member of the United Nations. We are servants of the United Nations. But I hope that I will live to see the same situation as I read this week of Richard von Weizsäcker. And I hope that the dream that all Koreans, North and South, have of peaceful reunification under terms of acknowledgement of great wrongs, punishment for those whom are accountable for crimes against humanity, and person-to-person contacts across the borders will be something we will all live to see. My father lived to 96, so I have a long way to go yet, and I'm very optimistic that with the help of this excellent conference, that these things shall be.
And we would also like to hear remarks from Mr. Gershman and also from Ms. Sonia Bezerko. I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you off so easily. My apologies.
Thank you. Thank you for the the award to the three of us. But if I can just use this moment to somewhat speak out of the box, out of the UN context of the text I read out this morning, and relate this to a personal experience of a couple of weeks ago in a couple of months ago in New York, which I had mentioned in the text, that the North Korean permanent mission there sought to meet with the rapporteur, with myself and Mr. Guillaume Pfeiffer, who is the human rights officer from Geneva, in the wake of the resolution being passed, being tabled at the third committee. We met at the sidelines of the session, and this was in the UN lounge there. I remember the name of the ambassador, human rights ambassador from North Korea, Ambassador Ri, is probably the counterpart of Mr. Ambassador Lee, saying to us that the rapporteur would be invited to go to North Korea on condition that two clauses were to be taken out from, if the two clauses, operational paragraphs were to be taken out from the text. One relates to the culpability of the supreme leader, and secondly, as was mentioned also here, the referral to the ICC. That, of course, didn't work out, but a singular remark that came out from the conversation was that please consider what can be done, because if we diplomats cannot take care of the issue, the military in North Korea will take over. It was a very interesting remark, which brings out this aspect that there will be in a tipping point, if you will, that was mentioned earlier by, I think, Amanda, where people in charge of the government that are tasked to look, to oversee external relations will come into perhaps a conflictual relationship with people tasked to look into the domestic issues. And therefore, what we see perhaps is a beginning of a schism, of a debate, and perhaps of a reform process within the country. Now, I'm aware that this issue may not be easily, let me say, taken by the ongoing debate regarding North Korea at this moment within the United Nations. And therefore, I'm putting this out to this conference that a new dimension to be looked into is this incremental process of changes taking place within the regime that may lead up to bigger changes in the future. But having said that, the apprehension, of course, is that we get carried away by looking at signs of reforms, and therefore putting aside the accountability process that is so much needed, as Mr. Carl Gresham was mentioning earlier, and that therefore the task ahead, perhaps from here on, is to really build up the case against North Korea in anticipation that at one day the judicial process will have to take place in that country. And therefore, I think we are now embarked on a new leaf in this process, and it will be a very challenging stage, but I'm hopeful, and I think we are in the Commission collectively hopeful that that point will be reached sooner than later. Thank you again for the recognition being given to the commissioners of the COI, and I wish you all a good conference and good luck. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm really honored and pleased that my colleagues and myself have been awarded by U.S. Committee for the Human Rights. But I would like also to stress that I'm accepting it on behalf of all those NGOs and human rights defenders whose endeavors were crucial in getting human rights violations in North Korea on the UN agenda. And I also owe them my membership on the Commission, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank them for their trust. The Commission was really a challenge, and still is, and it was really worth effort. And I would like also to thank to North Korean defectors, because only through speaking to them, one learns how important it is to listen, because we all just want to be heard. And I want to thank them for being brave enough to share their stories with us, and they offered a glimpse into their pain, which has been invisible for so long. I also believe that all these efforts were not in vain, and that this Commission will be just the starting point. We live in very turbulent times, which I think at this moment need more wisdom, more leadership, more courage, and I think that will provide a new framework also for approaching North Korea in different way. When I say in different way, starting from this Commission report, is really to engage more in social and economic aspects, because this is also one dimension of human rights, which I think North Korean people are now, at this moment, are more concerned. As far as transitional justice is concerned, I think it's important to find leaders who will be able to start this process in North Korean society, like religious leaders, like intellectuals. Many of them are abroad. I have seen a booklet here with names of North Korean writers who live in exile, who can be very useful to reflect the approach to the transitional justice in North Korea. And I also heard someone mention apartheid. I think North Korean people lived in apartheid, and experience on South Africa could be a good example or good way to proceed. I also thank to the U.S. Committee for Human Rights on North Korea for their continuous focus on human rights violations in North Korea. And I also hope they will find enough courage and strength to continue with that in order to challenge all these problems that are ahead of us. I think this is only a good beginning. Thank you.